Ohio's childcare system is currently navigating a period of severe operational crisis. More than half of all providers are running at a deficit, and 382 daycares have permanently closed since 2020. This table illustrates the state flattening the step-up to quality rating system. By collapsing 5 stars into 3 tiers, the administration cut premium reimbursement rates for gold-rated programs from an approximate 1.42 multiplier down to a flat 25% increase over the base rate. Lawmakers exacerbated this loss by passing House Bill 184, which delayed the implementation of federally mandated enrollment-based payments. This traps providers in a volatile attendance-based funding model, where revenue is tied to daily attendance rather than fixed enrollment. Attendance-based funding creates a dangerous conflict of interest. Providers are pressured to stay open during blizzards or declared emergencies to maintain subsidy revenue, creating significant negligence liability if a child is injured. Crucially, this delay also violates the 2024 federal standard for childcare funding. Operating without enrollment-based payments after the current waiver expires exposes Ohio to enforcement actions and fund freezing from the HHS Office of Inspector General. The state has effectively engineered a financial collapse for these facilities. They have systematically removed quality incentives while simultaneously increasing the operational and legal risks for small providers. Instead of stabilizing this funding gap, Ohio lawmakers pivoted towards a surveillance-heavy framework. Citing viral narratives of subsidy fraud, they introduced House Bill 649. HB649 mandates that all publicly funded childcare centers install mandatory cameras covering every entrance and childcare area. It further requires 60-day video retention and grants the state real-time access to those feeds. During committee hearings, the bill's sponsor claimed the mandate would impose no stateside expense, suggesting the government could simply utilize the existing cameras providers already have on site. We will now test the feasibility of those claims against the laws of optical resolution, data storage mathematics, and network topology. A legislative mandate ignoring the basic physical requirements of systems engineering is technically impossible to execute. To evaluate the claim that the state can rely on existing cameras, we must first define the legal purpose of the system, the forensic identification of children. The IEC standard requires 40 pixels across a face for forensic identification, about 76 pixels per foot. But a preschooler's face is 33% smaller than an adult's. To compensate and achieve forensic identification, cameras must actually deliver between 100 and 160 pixels per foot. Most legacy analog and older high-definition systems currently found in childcare centers deliver only 24 to 36 pixels per foot at standard classroom distances. Furthermore, these older signals degrade heavily as they travel over coaxial cable, resulting in blurry footage that is mathematically incapable of identifying an individual. Optical physics makes 4K, or 8-megapixel hardware, an absolute necessity to meet the legal intent of the bill. The laws of optical resolution invalidate the sponsor's claim. Compliance requires a massive, forced hardware upgrade. Next, we must model the data burden created by the requirement to retain all surveillance footage for a minimum of 60 days. We'll use a typical 32-camera facility upgraded to 4K resolution, recording at 15 frames per second using H.265 compression. H.265 is a modern coding standard used to compress video data without a total loss of image quality. Systems engineers use a standard formula to determine the data load. For 32 cameras in an active childcare environment, this generates up to 3.2 terabytes of new data daily. Multiplying by the 60-day retention mandate creates a staggering requirement of 57 to 96 terabytes. Small business DVRs typically hold 1 to 4 terabytes. Housing 96 terabytes of data requires a massive stack of up to 48 enterprise-grade hard drives running continuously. Maintaining this capacity requires enterprise-grade RAID redundancy servers to protect against data loss, along with heavy electrical, cooling, and IT maintenance. RAID is a system that spreads data across multiple disks, so the footage remains intact even if a drive fails. The upfront capital cost to the provider for this storage alone ranges from $6,000 to $17,000, plus hundreds in monthly ongoing overhead. The legislation effectively forces local daycares to function as enterprise-grade data centers, demanding specialized infrastructure they have no capacity to fund. Finally, we must address the requirement to grant the Department of Children and Youth real-time access to these feeds. Streaming 32 separate 4K H.265 video feeds simultaneously requires an upload capacity of 128 to 256 megabits per second. That requirement crashes into the telecommunications reality of rural and underserved Ohio. Childcare centers utilizing DSL or home cellular internet fallbacks typically have access to a mere 3 to 20 megabits of upload speed. This visualizes the bottleneck. Forcing that data volume through a rural pipe results in a 2,560% network overload. Dedicating the facility's entire internet capacity to state surveillance entirely cripples all other business operations, from payroll processing to mandatory parent communication apps. The state cannot mandate real-time streaming over physical network infrastructure that does not exist. Scaling these failures to a statewide level reveals the massive, unbudgeted IT costs of connecting 8,400 heterogeneous providers to a single government hub. Constructing a centralized government database of real-time video of children creates a significant cybersecurity threat and a massive target for data breaches. To legally secure this data, the state would need to implement CJIS-level security, the FBI's Criminal Justice Information Services policy. This requires FIPS 140-3 encryption, the mandatory standard for cryptographic modules protecting sensitive government data, along with 8,000 separate VPN tunnels. A conservative estimate for the state to build the required video management system and cloud storage infrastructure starts between $50 and $100 million in the first year alone. The sponsor's claim of no expense stateside is a multi-million-dollar miscalculation rooted in a complete lack of technical analysis. This brings us back to the original policy paradox. The administration claims it cannot afford quality funding premiums or federally mandated enrollment payments for its childcare professionals, yet it is willing to engineer a $100 million surveillance apparatus to satisfy a political narrative about fraud. Policy drafted in total ignorance of physical and technical limitations guarantees the failure of the entire regulatory framework. When a state demands mathematical impossibilities from its underfunded providers, it ensures the collapse of the system it claims to protect.